always wanted to be in a comedy, an ensemble comedy, and I always wanted to be in a show that had a great finale. So I feel like, woo, I'm pretty good. I mean, I could check those boxes off, and and I'm just so grateful for the love, the fans.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. My name is Talal, and you're listening to the Popcorn and Soda Podcast, the show where we discuss all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we're joined by a very special guest. You know her best from the pop culture television classic The Office, in her role as Meredith Palmer. She will also be touring this December alongside with Jane Lynch as the act, The Two Lost Souls, performing their hit holiday album, A Swingin' Little Christmas. On the show today, the very talented Kate Flannery. How are you, Kate?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for coming to hang out on the show today. I am so excited to have you here. And hey, before we deep dive into all the great things you've done, how have you been over these last few years, Kate? Living in this world, it's been pretty crazy, right?
It's been pretty crazy. But I feel really lucky, and I feel, you know, I, I just feel like I'm living my best life, even when the world is messed up. I still feel really lucky. So, knock on wood.
Yeah, no, well, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that, especially for a lot of creatives in this industry where everything pretty much got shut down for the better part of 2.5 years. And it's so good that things are finally getting back to the way they were before, or somewhat of a new normal, whatever it is. So
Right.
here's hoping to everyone succeeding and thriving in the art. So, hey, before we deep dive into all things The Office, which I adore you in, I am so fascinated by your story. Where does this begin for you, Kate? And what were some of your early influences that made you want to be in the creative arts?
Uh, I always wanted to be a kid actor, but my mom was not into it. And I actually am grateful to her for her, what I call being the brakes. I was the gas and she was the brakes. But when I was a senior in high school, I got to work at a professional show at a dinner theater, like 8 shows a week. And I had to leave school early on Wednesdays, and I felt like so excited. It was a great experience. But I always wanted to be a performer, always. And I don't know if that's being like the youngest of 7 kids. My dad owned a bar. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure, but TV was always on.
Talking about the great roles you played, let's dive right into Meredith Palmer. Dare I say, the most honest and self-aware character of the show. And Meredith's one of the fan favorites of the show, and that's largely due to your amazing acting and making us believe in the character. So let's start at the very beginning. Where does this all start in terms of the audition process? What was the character originally supposed to be versus what we ended up seeing on screen?
Not sure if they knew, if they had a game plan initially. To be honest with you, I initially auditioned for the part of Jan and didn't get it. Uh, but I will say, when I first read from Meredith, what they said was that it was all from the Alliance episode, so it was lactose intolerant, divorced, I mean, had a hysterectomy, like all these, like, I don't know how that completely, like, turns her into an alcoholic, but somehow she became one. And I think we actually tried to. There was a storyline in the first Halloween episode of season 2, but it all got cut. All my alcoholism got cut until Christmas. They were waiting for the holidays to reveal
Oh, yeah.
Meredith's drinking. Yeah. So yeah, I think that it evolved over time. I think we have great writers, and I like I said, my dad owned a bar, so maybe I'm a natural to play an alcoholic. I don't know. I
Well, you know
certainly
what?
waited on enough Merediths. I waited tables for years and bartended, and I felt like there was always one woman that was loud and proud, and the last to leave the bar.
Well, it's interesting. I've seen you talk a lot about the character of Meredith, and like as I mentioned, she's one of the true honest characters of the show, where she's very self-aware of herself. She knows that sometimes she is a train wreck. Now, how do you view Meredith today versus how you did while you were playing Meredith at the time?
Well, you know, it's funny. As a woman, I feel like I apologize a lot, like more than I mean, it's just kind of part of the process for me. And it was so awesome to play Meredith because she never apologized, never. And it's awesome to play someone who just knows who they are and doesn't really care. Like doesn't have that self conscious piece that I sometimes struggle with. The people pleasing thing. She's not a people pleaser.
No, no, that she's not. No. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it goes back to like the power of the show, which I truly feel is in the writing and the casting. What makes the show so relatable is that everyone knows a Meredith in their life, a Stanley and Angela, and geez, probably even a Creed in some way, shape, or form. So
Sure.
I what I loved is your dynamic with Steve Carell, and especially the episode where you get hit by the car. You have a pretty physical like role in throughout the series, which I just love. So let's gear into Steve for a second. What was it like working alongside with such a comedic genius?
Well, I knew Steve. We were both at Second City at the same time. He was like a senior when I was a freshman. I mean, because we have different casts at Second City. There's touring companies, and there's main stage. And yeah, Steve is already highly revered. And we did well, I was part of a cast that we were a part of the Real Life Brady Bunch, which Steve was the first. He was in the first cast, but I think only for like a month, and then I ended up doing the show for years. So it's kind of funny. But then I hadn't seen Steve in a few years. So when I saw, I mean, it's funny. My boyfriend, who's an NBC photographer, whom I met on the show, Chris Haston, he'd worked with Steve so many times on pilots that didn't go. So when he saw Steve, he gave him a hard time. He's like, "Oh, I thought this pilot was going to go, but Pharrell's here." And luckily, my boyfriend was wrong. And yeah, I have to say, when we got invited to the 40-Year-Old Virgin premiere, it was so amazing because it was during the beginning of season two. We were filming, and Ben Stiller, Jim Carrey, and Will Ferrell showed up. I've recently talked to Ben Stiller about this, and he confirmed. I felt like they were checking out the new guy. I said this to Ben and said, that's exactly what we were doing. They were like nervous about like, who's this guy? So I felt so proud to be working with Steve. I mean, I felt proud before, but I felt like 40-Year-Old Virgin was just a whole new level. And I feel like Steve did so much of the heavy lifting through most of the series, and we were lucky enough to ride his coattails.
Uh, well, I think you're just being modest there. I think you play a big part in the amazing success and the love people have for this show, and I think you're a big part of that as well. Now, it's interesting, right? The show's been off the air longer than it's even been on the air. Now, I'm almost fascinated when I speak to people that are part of these shows that everyone just blasts right into the paradigm of our everyday society and our everyday entertainment. Do you know while you're in it that you're doing something special? Or is it one of those things where time just has to take shape and mold the show into whatever it's become?
Well, I will say the process was so fantastic. We actually were told to bring paperwork the first two seasons, and so we were like busy because they wanted to catch us actually working. Like you don't just start working, cameras on you. It's like you're involved in some sort of thing that the camera happens to catch you. But it's just the best writing ever. I mean,
It is.
I wouldn't speak for days, but I would have such joy for being in that room, and just being a part of that energy. Because I think it's such a rare thing when the show is treated like the star. And that's a Steve Carell thing. Like he really, most guys that are number one on the call sheet make it about them. He never did. He always knew that the show was more important than anybody and any one person. So I think it kept everybody in line. Our
Mm-hmm.
behavior was better because of it. So yeah, but every
Yeah.
day was a joy, like a joy. Like I couldn't get there fast enough. Like what's gonna happen now? And that's a rare thing. And luckily the world felt the same way. Because sometimes something's funny and it's almost like too soon or too smart. And I feel like The Office treats the audience like they're smart because they are. And
Yeah.
people that really, really get it, really, really get it.
Well, it's fascinating. The show has had three lives, all within the last 15 years. First one being the original run, the second one being this crazy net boom that happened where the show dropped on there. And then the third one is during the pandemic, where pretty much everyone was locked up and they turned to this show and started watching it for the first time. Like me personally, I'm part of that second wave of the Netflix on there where we
Right.
binged it. I binged literally the entire series in like a week. It's one of those things, and I know so many people
Wow.
that did that. I was always aware of the show when it was on air, but it was just never really my thing at the time. But then as I started
Sure.
working and I was in an office setting where you start putting pieces together, all right, that person's an Angela, that person's a Creed, that person's a
Right.
Meredith. So how often do you get people coming up to you telling you that, hey, they just watched the show for the first time?
I mean, a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I get recognized by the back of my head because the back of my head was on screen a lot. And people feel like they know you. They really do. I mean, the
Yeah.
fans are fantastic. It's crazy. Like, it's I don't think a day's gone by that someone hasn't, well, one or 10 people haven't gone, oh my God. So I try to keep my top on because I'm representing. I'm just saying.
Now, having played this character for the amount of years that you played it, has the character of Meredith impacted your life, just even personally outside of all the great things you've done since? What do you take away from a character like Meredith, the positives that are there?
Well, it's always great to get to. I felt like I got to stay in my lane, which was like I did a lot of physical comedy on the show, and sometimes my lines would get cut because my face basically said what the line was. Same sentiment. Sometimes that happened. But I love to do a lot of the stunts. I mean, we did have stunt people, but I definitely gave it a shot. Almost every time, except for when my hair was on fire and I didn't shave my head. Um, but something about my hair. But yeah, I think what I take away is just the again, like the audacity of a character who's completely themselves. And I feel like the more I give myself permission to be completely myself, the better off I am.
Now, I'm almost fascinated because on the TV, like when you watch the show, you see this group of people that are they all have different relationships within each other, but it's like a united family almost in so many ways. Do you kind of have that in real life? Because I know a lot of TV shows,
We
it's not
did.
really the case. Yeah, is it
No,
like,
we
yeah,
did.
talk
I
to me
mean,
about that.
we still have text threads, and we do a lot of fan events. Some of us, and it's a pleasure. It's great to see everybody. I mean, we're all very connected. Whether we want to be or not, it's like it's like we're family. I mean, after 9 seasons, it's a family.
Yeah.
If you're
So
lucky, if you're lucky.
if you're lucky, and I think that's one of the great things about the show is it genuinely resonates on screen that everyone is there for each other, and at the end of the day, as much as you can have arguments within your coworkers or your friends, you can tell that people genuinely care for each other on the show, and I think that's just one of the one of the most powerful things about the show. So okay, we're living in this world where all these hit TV shows that ended maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they're being like rebooted or having reunion specials. And let's be honest, numbers don't lie, and The Office is a streaming giant. In Kate Flannery's mind, in your world, what is the best way to approach a potential revival or reunion? Or should they even do that?
I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't know if it should because I feel like the climate of comedy. I mean, there's a there's a sensitivity that's kicked in that was not there when we did our show.
That's definitely
Yeah,
true, yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if Michael Scott's going to fly these days, but I think the smartest thing about the show is that his insensitivity was always called out in front of the person whom he was insulting.
Yeah.
And so it was more about like what an idiot. I've always felt like it was very clear. I understood like when All in the Family, Archie Bunker, a lot of people felt like, oh, he's like me. I'm like Archie. There was it was almost too subtle, some of the irony. Where I think Michael Scott's more obvious. He's just a doofus. Michael Scott's insensitivity would not fly today. And what the show always pointed out was that he was an idiot because he would, if he made fun of someone, it was so clear that it was wrong because the person was in front of them. It was never behind their back, or it wasn't called out by other people. Like, whoa, which is it's an interesting uh, intelligence around that that bad behavior, but I don't know if people are willing to, you know, sift through all that, the layers, and they might just be insulted.
Yeah,
So
it's
we
one of
maybe
those
we just need to
things.
keep it as it is. Maybe it just needs to be as it was, and yeah,
Yeah, and it's one of those things, right, where sometimes you can reboot something and it doesn't have the same magic that it originally did. And I think one
right.
thing that's so great about the show is that with streaming and Netflix and a whole new generation finding it, I think time was a big factor as well in just the popularity of the show, where people are discovering it at different points of their lives. So maybe, who knows, if it does ever happen, would you be up for like a Friends type reunion kind of thing?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure if we can all get facelifts like that. I'm just kidding. That's a whole lot of Botox on that special. I'm just saying. Oh, I don't know if you're going to get the same from the Office cast. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, like we're talking about Michael Scott and the character, and I'm a big, I love all these cool fan theories and all these cool visual essays people create about The Office. Do you think Michael Scott was a good boss?
I think Michael Scott really cared, and usually that got in the way. Was not the best thinker, but you know what? It's what's so funny in the show is that as big of a jerk as he could be, the numbers at Dunder Mifflin were actually pretty good. It's sort of like he was a head scratcher. Like he
Yeah,
obviously knew something. He knew something. He's
he
just
did.
he was just a yeah.
Yeah.
His verbal. He's just he was not superstitious, just a little stitious.
Putting a bow on the Office conversation, what do you take away from your time on the show? The memories, like, is there something that sticks out to you till this day that you hold
Oh
cherish,
well,
like
I mean,
cherish?
I am the luckiest person I know. I mean, I got to quit my restaurant job, actually, and also just be part of a show. Like I always wanted to be in a comedy, an ensemble comedy, and I always wanted to be in a show that had a great finale. So I feel like, woo, I'm pretty good. I mean, I could check those boxes off, and and I'm just so grateful for the love, the fans, and I, I get invited places that I maybe have no place going, but I get if you invite me, I'll probably come because I like a party. So I feel extremely fortunate, and as an artist, like to be a part of something that was just so smart and so just I think it's like some of the best TV ever.
It truly is. And again, like I mentioned, you're a big part of that. And I think that's so great that all of you guys have this collective love of the show. So let's shifting away from The Office. I think it's so great what you're doing with Jane Lynch. So hey, you guys are gearing up to tour again. The
Yes,
holiday
yeah.
album. What's it like working with Jane, and what do you look forward to the most during your upcoming tour?
Jane brings it. She's amazing. She's so talented and she's so giving, and she just understands the process, and I just feel like we get to delve into this world, and I feel like people come because they know our names, but I think they're pleasantly surprised because they don't know what to expect. But it's basically we're doing a concert with a lot of comedy in it, and our band is fantastic, the Tony Guerrero Quintet. They're jazz, and they're just fantastic, and we do some 70s hits, we do some Broadway stuff. uh our Christmas show, of course, is all Christmas, based on our Swinging Little Christmas album, which was on the Billboard Top 10 for a few
Yeah.
weeks. So yeah, so it's just a joy, and I love touring before Christmas, and we've gotten to do it every year but one since we started this 8 years ago. So I feel like it's just the music, it just fills my heart, and I think it's so healing. I love Christmas music in particular. It just makes me feel like a kid in the best way.
Oh, that's amazing. Kate, for anyone who's looking to potentially attend one of these shows or get more information, where can they get more insight?
Go to janelynchofficial.com and you'll find all the dates. Yeah, and then we're doing Two Lost Souls in Costa Mesa in January. So those dates are on there too. That's non-Christmas. But I have to say there's something for everybody. So, but it's so awesome. I love performing live. I love the live audience, and I kind of never stopped performing live. I also had a musical lounge act that I did for, like, a dying lounge act, comedy lounge act. I did for 20 years, the Lampshades. So, I feel like it's always great to be on stage with someone else who's really funny and really wonderful. So you never, I mean, it just feels like effortless. We're working hard, but it
Yeah.
it feels amazing.
Hey, well, that's awesome. For anyone listening, please go check the show out. It's going to be great fun, and we'd love to get you up here in Toronto for one of those shows soon.
I hope so. I know I know we haven't been in Canada in a while. We need to go back.
It is now time for a segment I call the final act. Kate, I'm going to ask you 10 rapid fire questions about your likes, your dislikes, and I just want the first thing that pops in your mind. But here's the catch. We're going to give you 1 minute to try to get through them all. Watch at home or a movie theater?
Movie theater.
Favorite TV show?
The Office.
Favorite Office character besides yourself?
Michael Scott.
Most like their character from The Office in real life?
Dwight Schrute.
How about the least?
Angela Kinsey.
All right. Favorite episode from the show?
Well, two, Moroccan Christmas and George Foreman Grill.
Last time you watched the show in its entirety?
2 weeks ago.
Describe The Office in one word.
Brilliant.
Lastly, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes.
Bam. All right.
You're drunk enough.
Since you've been such a great guest, I will let that slide. Pizza, pineapple. All right. Each to their own. And you know what? You nailed it. You did great on the time there as well. And Kate, just thank you so much for coming to hang out on the show. And I look forward to having you back on the show to discuss your next project. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.